Welcome back. So happy to be here with you again on our 23rd day together. Today we're shifting gears into our next stage of practice together. So just to review, we started out the first week was about grounding. It was all grounding practices. The second week were our energy centers and tending to each energy center. The third week was all about connection to ourself, to others, and to spirit. And this week is about navigating through the pathway of the Peace Warrior. What do I mean by that? Well, the Peace Warrior pathway is a 5-step process that I came up with that is based in an acronym for peace. So the first step of the process, the P stands for perceptions. And our perceptions are really powerful because it is how we see and interpret the world and everything that we're experiencing within it. So that's where we're going to start today. The perception, the power of our perceptions. So the lens of your perception is literally what has developed over the course of your lifetime, and it's that inner dialogue and the brain mechanisms at work that have formed to cause you to have this really unique prism through which you see and make sense of the world that you're experiencing, which is a beautiful thing, right? That we all have this unique prism through which we experience life. But at the same time, when we experience a collective trauma such as this, it can activate some old, outdated lenses of perception. So think about your vision overall, like your eye vision. If you start to not be able to read up close or see at a distance, what would you do if you have access to healthcare? You would go to an eye doctor and get a prescription written and get a new lens so that you can see clearly, right? Well, we have to do that inner work as well, because sometimes what happens is when we're going through a trauma, our nervous system gets activated and those old, confusing, blurry lenses come up and we start perceiving things through that framework, through that lens, and it doesn't work for us. It can keep us feeling afraid, anxious, depressed. So we need to get really mindful and clear about when that's happening and be able to mindfully bring to the surface our new corrective lens, the lens through which we want to experience what's happening. That is a much more empowered place to be, okay? So let's start. We're gonna start by journaling a little bit. So if you can take out your journal, and we're gonna make 2 columns. On the left column, we're gonna put our old lens of perception. And on the right column, we'll put our new lens of perception. Okay? So under the old lens of perception, I'll just give you some examples. And through my work with clients, and my trauma studies, I can tell you that there are these very common themes of old trauma lenses. And they usually sound similarly to messages around, I'm not safe, I'm not good enough, or I'm not doing enough, I'm not in control. So these are some very common themes that happen in a lot of our minds, and it happens to be the perception, that trauma-based perception through which we start experiencing what's going on. So I want you to just check in with yourself and ask yourself, what is the old lens that might be creeping up as I'm going through this coronavirus pandemic and this collective trauma? So for instance, one of mine that I'm going to write is, I'm powerless to change this. Another old lens of perception that I might write is that, I'm not safe. So take a moment to really tap in and sit with yourself. Actually, let's breathe together and center. Just take a moment to write down a couple of your perceptions that may be coming up right now about this as you're going through this. Those old stories. I say stories because how we see something is then responsible for the story that our brain writes about it. Right? So just take a moment. And then I want you to really sit with those perceptions, those old lenses, and notice how they make you feel. What emotions do they bring up? What sensations do they bring up in your body? So like the I am powerless causes me a lot of like tightness in my throat, right? It makes me kind of feel like there's nothing I can do here to help, or kind of makes me feel like I'm, a victim to this circumstance. It's very disempowering. So just notice how those old perceptions make you feel. Kind of the thoughts, the sensations, the emotions that they bring to the surface. And let's take a couple deep breaths to really tend to all of that in a loving way. And when you feel ready, let's move over to the other column, which are the new lenses of perception that we have been developing throughout our lifetime, that we really want to call upon to use to navigate this situation. So for instance, instead of I'm not safe, my new lens of perception is going to be I am doing the best I can to help keep myself safe and all those around me. The I'm powerless lens, I'm going to replace that with I have power over myself and I'm showing up in the best way I know how. So go ahead and write your new lenses of perception that you mindfully want to be using to experience and interpret what's happening right now. And let's breathe those in. Breathe in these intentions to see and interpret the world around us in this much more empowered way. And just notice how these new lenses of perception cause you to feel. What emotions, maybe some tension releases. What thoughts? Maybe some thoughts like, yeah, I've got this. We're going to get through this. Good. So just notice the difference for a moment from the old lens of perception to the new lens of perception. now let's just do a little bit more breathing together, really integrating that we have the power to choose our perceptions, to choose how we see and interpret this difficult experience and every other challenging experience that happens in our life. So let's really breathe that knowing in. And I'll lead us through some mantras. I perceive my reality. I choose which lens I will look out into the world from. I send love and healing to my old lenses of perception. I thank them for keeping me safe when I needed them. But it is safe and I am ready for my new lens. I see clearly. I am writing a story that empowers me. Let's breathe one more deep breath together. Excellent work. So I want to encourage you to just notice without judgment. Just notice when the old lens is creeping in and it's writing that old story, and you can just pause and breathe and practice bringing in a new lens, just like as if you were like, I see it clearly now. Okay? So just put on your new lens, almost an earpiece, and notice how that feels different. Notice the empowerment that you are taking back, that you're standing in your power again, ready to see, interpret, calm, and act. Let's today send so much love and strength let's send it to every human being that had lost a family member, a loved one prior to this, right before this. I know a few people that come to mind who were grieving the death of a loved one right before the coronavirus happened around the world. And now their grief is kind of really amplified because of the collective grief as well. So let's just send them so much love and strength. And to you, such a big energetic hug and reminder to send yourself nurturing, loving care, and send it to all those around you. I'll see you tomorrow.